Massachusetts or Florida? When you first think about retirement and you think about those two options, your first thought probably almost immediately goes to Florida. But Massachusetts has some key points going for it, that may balance the equation a little, if not even tip it in its favor. And I'll get to those points towards the end of the video. First, let's talk about Florida. Now, Florida has some great reasons why you might consider retiring there. And I get into all the reasons why I love Florida in my Why Florida video. But retirement just adds a whole nother layer to it, and a whole bunch of other things to consider, when thinking about where to retire. Now, I'm not going to get into every reason again in this video, but obviously the warm weather and the beaches play a large role into why Florida, was such a popular relocation destination. No more harsh winters or shoveling snow. Florida is a national destination for retirees and just people that relocate in general. There are a ton of great options for retirement. You could purchase a home, you could purchase a condo, or you could purchase into a 55 plus community. First, let me tell you a quick story of what my thought process was when I started thinking about retiring in Florida. It was years before I even became a real estate agent. I was a correction officer. And in that profession, all everybody talks about or thinks about is their retirement. Everyone's just counting down the days to put their time in of 20 years so they can collect their pension and retire. Jail is not a fun place for inmates or staff. So that's where my mindset really started to turn into planning mode as to when I would turn 55. And my plan was to retire and move down to Florida. Because I had grown such an affinity for the area just from traveling down there, over the last 20 years or so. And, I decided, this is where I wanted to go. So I started to do my research, moving down there when I turned 55. And the first thing I was thinking about is that, I'm not going to want to do yard work at that age. So I started looking into condos. And, I was researching condos online. And my plan was, I'll buy a condo now. I'll rent it out for 20 years. Have it pay for itself, and then when I'm 55, boom, I'll have my place, the mortgage will be, close to paid off, if not already paid off, and I'll be ready to roll. I even researched property management companies, how much it would cost to have them handle everything down there while I resided up here. But then my line of thinking started to change. I actually started to look into the 55 plus communities. And the reason for this was because I started thinking, if I bought that condo and I rented it for 20 years, by the time I get down there, it's going to be 20 years older. What's that property going to look like once it's 20 years older? Is it still going to be the property, that I want to reside at, or will some newer, better property come along during that time frame? And the older you get, your interests change. Is that even going to be in the same area that I'm going to want to be in, 20 years later? Am I going to want to be like on the beach or near the theme parks? Like, where's my head going to be at? What are my interests going to be? Over 20 years, it can change. So yes, I would still have an asset, that I would be able to sell if I wanted to, and then purchase a newer property, but then I'd probably be taking on another mortgage because I'd be buying a newer property, and selling an older one. I was trying to think of the options where I could have a reasonable mortgage while I waited till I was closer to retirement age to buy the retirement property. So I started looking into the 55 plus communities, because the prices were so incredibly low. I remember seeing one that was like $79,000, and the inside of the home, looked as nice, if not nicer, than the home I lived in now. And, the communities came with so many amenities, and I had been introduced, I had a little bit of experience with the 55 plus community. When I first met my wife, we took a trip down there and we stayed with her grandparents. I got a little taste for it. We drove the golf cart around, we went in the pool, I saw all the activities, and I just got a feel for that 55 plus community, I thought it was pretty cool. I'm like, this is a nice place to be, when you retire. Then only a few years ago, during one of our family vacations, we actually set up a tour to tour one of the 55 plus communities. Now, we were just into our very early 40s, so we're not even close to 55 yet, but it doesn't hurt to start doing your research early. So we took the tour, and the amenities, everything there was great. The community was great. The house was amazing. The inside, we loved it. And, granted, it's a manufactured home, so it's not quite the quality of the home that we have up here, but we loved it. We liked it. The only issue that made us think more about it was the HOA fees. So the HOA fees at this particular community, were like close to $700 a month. So yeah, you'd be getting a very reasonable mortgage, but the HOA fees were going to bump that number up, quite a bit. I'll get more into what our thought process is now when I get to the Massachusetts portion of this video and weigh those options. But for now, let's stick to Florida. There are communities with lower HOA fees, and HOAs are not always a bad thing. An HOA, I should point out, stands for Homeowners Association. And they have a board of people, from inside the community, and they're just pretty much making sure that the rules and the policies are being followed. So in some ways that can be a good thing. It can be aggravating, because they may send you a letter, of some tree branch that fell in your yard telling you got to clean it up. I mean, you got to clean it up, but they're going to send you that letter anyway, because that's their job. They have to enforce the rules and that all the properties are maintained. But the good aspect of this is that, your neighbors in your neighborhood, is going to look terrific because there's somebody out there enforcing it. So, that's just going to make the whole property, increase in value and just be a nice place to drive in every day when everything looks clean and orderly and, beautiful landscaping at the entrance, different things like that. So that's always a great question to ask also, when you're looking at these properties, is ask about the HOA, get a copy of the rules, make sure you're okay with their rules and their regulations, and just understand what the pricing is going to be, and also understand that HOAs, they do go up over time. So it's not just going to be set forever, when you sign the contract. HOAs, it's always going to be increasing. Some food for thought. First off, in retirement in general, you really want to consider downsizing quite a bit. You want to go through all of your belongings, and really question, do you really need all of these things? And that even goes for some nostalgic kind of things. Maybe things that you've kept your whole life. Do you really need all of these things? Maybe now's the time, to start passing them down, to your children or your grandchildren, or maybe it's just time to let some things go. And, I'm not saying everything, you can keep some of the nostalgic kind of things, but, if you bring everything with you, you're going to need a much bigger place when you retire, and it's like they say, at the end, you can't bring it with you. So once you downsize, it can really help you determine the amount of square footage that you're going to need. And don't get caught up into the amount of square footage that you have now, and think that you're going to need that amount of space, in retirement, because life is going to change. You're probably not going to be hosting the big holiday dinners anymore. Your children are getting to the age, maybe that they're going to want to start hosting, the holiday dinners at their home. And the grandchildren are probably not going to want to visit you as often as you might think. You want to have some space, if you have a guest or something like that, but you don't want to have a lot of dedicated space to that. Maybe you have your computer room or your den, and you have some kind of, portable bed that you could throw in there when you do have a guest, but it's probably not going to be what you're thinking. A lot of times you might end up going to them, into, your children's homes now to see your grandchildren and stuff, more often that they're going to come to see you. Also something to think about when looking at the square footage of your new home, is to realize that the weather's going to be warmer. Yes, maybe too hot at times, but you're going to adjust to the heat, and you're probably going to be spending a lot of time outdoors. It's called the Sunshine State for a reason. So, when you're looking at, how big your patio is or your porch or your lanai, just calculate, the size of those, incorporate that into your thinking with the square footage of the interior of your home. Florida has whole stores dedicated just to outside furniture. Specifically 55 plus communities, what do you look for in them? And Florida has so many of them that when you start researching them, your head's probably going to spin. We already covered HOA fees. That's one thing that you definitely want to look at. But what else should you be looking at? I'd say some things to consider are, what do you want to be next to? Some people want to be close to the beach. Some people are okay with a little bit of a drive to the beach. Some people want to be close to the theme parks. Some people are looking for a community, that has everything you're going to need, right there in that community. Some people are into golf courses. Some people are into the nightlife. Some people prefer, a quiet setting. Some people prefer, an array of activities to do inside the community. One important thing to notate when choosing the community, that suits you the best is that you're going to be finding like-minded people. Yeah, you're going to have to be a little outgoing in the community to meet new friends, but they also chose that same community that you chose. And, they're probably in a very similar situation to you. You're going to meet people that did what you did. You're going to meet people that, moved across the country, to come to this community. Or if you already lived in Florida, you might be meeting someone else that just moved, to a different area of Florida. The point is, you will meet people with similar interests as you. So if you choose a community, with a golf course, and you never golfed before, don't be intimidated by that. Go out to the golf course and learn how to play golf. Because odds are, there's going to be a lot of people, that are in the same boat as you. They never played golf before, and this is their first time using this golf course right here in the community. Make a list of what you're looking for, and start with that. And be open to what different communities have to offer. Set up tours. Physically go to the community and just get a feel for what it's like inside the community. Because sometimes on paper, it's not the same as what it's like in person. There is such a wide array of 55 plus communities. You have older ones, there are brand new construction, brand new development communities, and if you're interested in brand new construction, and you want to know how to select the right builder, what questions to ask, I highly recommend watching my video here, the new construction process and tips video, because in that video, I'm going to cover the entire process, for buying new construction. And that will go for if you're going to buy in a 55 plus community, or just a general brand new development community. One of the hot things that's been going on in Florida recently is building these master plan communities. And I got a little glimpse of it last year when I visited Lake Nona and I did some video tours of some of the brand new homes there. But I could just see it, that community was up and coming. And how these work is they build this master plan community, and then within the community, they have a bunch of new development communities. And one of those new development communities, the new thing is to have a 55 plus community as one of those communities inside the master plan community. So the master plan community is also going to have, retail, restaurants, gas stations. So, you'll be secluded in your 55 plus community, but then you're going to have access right there, to what all those other communities have, and everything's going to be right there for you. But no talk about 55 plus communities is complete without mentioning the Villages, because the Villages is the largest 55 plus active adult community in the world. People describe it as the Disney World for retirement living. They say that, if you're a person that you love Disney and you could just live there, then this is the place that you would probably want to consider choosing for your retirement destination. There are over 100,000 residents. They're in the process of developing and have plans for adding another 100,000 homes. There is just live entertainment. Every night there's live music. There's 3 center squares. Each square has so many activities. There's retail shops, there's restaurants, there's gyms, there's medical facilities. You have mechanics, you have golf cart mechanics, you have golf cart gas stations, and then throughout the Villages, there's some of the larger, chain retail stores, like there's a Walmart, a Publix, anything that you could think you might need is probably there. They call it the bubble because, everything you need is pretty much there in the Villages. It takes about 45 minutes to drive from one end of the Villages to the other end. And, you can use your car or you can use a golf cart. And most people that live there, they own a golf cart. You can access pretty much anywhere with the golf cart. You can even drive your golf cart to Walmart. It's located north of Orlando. It's probably about 90 minutes to get to Disney World Resort and probably about 1 hour to get to Orlando International Airport. It's about a 2-hour drive to get to Siesta Key Beach, which is regarded as one of the top beaches in the entire world. Now, you could drive a shorter distance to get to a closer beach, and that's probably one of the few knocks on the Villages, is that's the one thing they don't have inside that bubble. and that's a beach. So like I said, they have those 3 center squares, but they also have about 100 villages that make up the villages. And each one of those villages has its own amenity center. And each amenity center typically has like a pool, pickleball court, tennis courts, all kinds of amenities and activities. And then throughout the villages, there are 216 softball teams. There's over 100 tennis courts, over 200 pickleball courts. They have bowling alleys, they got bocce, archery, basketball. There are over 100 restaurants, and then there are over 2,500 clubs that you can join. So if you're looking to connect with people that have similar interests than you, you can join some of these clubs. And pretty much anything that you can think of is probably a club in the villages. I mean, if you're into old classic cars, there's a club for that. If you're into archery, there's a club for that too. So it's just a way to connect with people because the villages are so large, and they put on different events, so you'll know where to go and you guys can meet up and do different things like that. Now, the villages is open to the public, so you can drive to the villages and check it out. But you can probably only purchase there, if you're 55 plus, because they have a threshold where 80% of the homes need to have at least one person residing in them that is age 55 or above. So one benefit, to being a resident is that you get a resident key card. And that resident key card gets you access to all the amenity centers throughout all the 100 villages that are there. It gets you access to all those amenity centers. So that's a huge benefit to being a resident and not just a visitor. And what's the cost of such privileges? Well, remember when I told you that I toured another 55 plus community and the HOA fees were like around $700 a month? Well, here's one of the great benefits about the villages is there's no HOA. There's no HOA fees. Now, they do have something called an amenity center fee, and that's right now about $184 a month, and that can slightly go up each year like the HOA fees, but $184 a month to give you access to all these amenity centers. I mean, you really can't go wrong with that. They do have another thing, that's called the bond, that I'll get into in a little bit, but there's no HOA, no HOA fees. Also, this is the largest golf community in the entire nation. They have 12 championship golf courses, and they have over 40 executive golf courses, and are building new ones as we speak. And what's great about the golf courses is that the executive golf courses are part of your amenity fees. So if you're a resident there, you can use any of these 40 plus executive golf courses. Now, how much do the homes go for in the villages? Well, right now they range from about 300,000, or just below 300,000, all the way up to about 2 million. And what's the square footage range for the homes? They range from about 1,200 square feet, up to about 3,500 square feet. So, the $1 million homes are not ridiculously larger, but the big thing that you're paying for with the higher end of the market homes is the views. So, those higher end homes, they just have great views of like the golf course, or different things like that. So the villages are a pretty exciting, largely entertaining place to live. People that live there, they describe it like you're on vacation all the time. But you don't always have to go out. You can stay in and relax also. But they just love knowing, that the options for all the entertainment, is right outside their door if they choose to go do it. But like I talked about earlier, you have to decide what's best for you. I mean, maybe you don't want all those activities and all that entertainment, right inside your community. Maybe you want to live a lower key lifestyle. And also, you don't have to live in the villages. You could choose to live in a community, that's within a reasonable driving distance to the villages so that you could just visit the villages, when you wanted all that entertainment. And also keep in mind, there are some moderately priced homes in the villages, but it can get expensive in the villages with the homes, where you could find another 55 plus community with great amenities, at a substantially lower price for the home. Keep in mind with pricing, like I keep harping on, always check the HOA fees. And the villages, they don't have HOA fees, but they have something that comes with the home called the bond. And the bond could be $25,000. It could be substantially more than that, depending on the home that you select. And that's just money that goes towards the infrastructure of the district and different things like that. You can pay it off over a 30-year period. Also, you could pay it off early. But that's one thing also to consider, when you're looking into, buying into the villages, because you could buy a resale home that maybe the bond has already been paid off on. There's more details to the bond. That's just a quick overview. So if you have any additional questions, just feel free to reach out to me. One last thing to mention with the 55 plus active adult communities when considering them is, yes, you're going to want to choose one, that has the fun amenities that you're looking for, but also keep in mind, even though you're retired, you're still going to travel. You're still going to leave the community to go to restaurants, to go to the beach. Just because you love golf doesn't even mean that you need to select a community that has a golf course in it. You could select a community that's just near a golf course, because odds are, even if you have a golf course there, you're still going to want to go and play at different golf courses. So just don't feel like you're stuck in the community. Yeah, it is convenient to have, a lot of those amenities right there in case you don't feel like leaving. But don't feel like you're going to be stuck there and you can find everything that you're going to do in that one community. Now let's circle back to Massachusetts. Because as I said earlier, we're looking at 55 plus communities in Florida and also the benefits of Massachusetts. One thing that I wanted to mention while working with different builders in Massachusetts that I learned is that the reason we're seeing more and more new development 55 plus communities has a lot to do with the towns. Some developers have plans to build brand new communities that are not age restricted, but they don't get approved by the town. And some of the town's concerns are that by adding this additional amount of housing to the community, that it's going to cause stress, on certain systems. One of those systems being the education system. Their concern is that schools will not be able to handle the influx of new students. So one of the ways to avoid this concern, is to have the development be a 55 plus community. So that's what some developers are leaning towards, because it's easy to get approved if they just develop a 55 plus community. So back to my story, how I was looking into Florida for retirement because of all of the amazing things down there. But my wife and I are now reconsidering that move. Massachusetts has two great points going for it that strongly move the needle towards staying here. The first one is staying close to our family and friends, especially our children. Now that we're thinking about it, we're probably not going to want to spend our retirement, that far away from our children, and possibly grandchildren. Now, it's true that our children will probably have careers and, things might get busy and maybe we're not going to see them as often as we're thinking that we're going to see them. But still, it weighs heavily on our mind, that we want to be around our children and we still want to see our children, interact with our grandchildren. We want to go to their games, if they have soccer games or baseball games or whatever it is. So those are things that now we're starting to consider and think about, that we don't want to be that far away, from our family, and, we want to be there for them if they need us to babysit or whatever it is. And also, vice versa, me and my wife, we're not going to be getting any younger. What if we need some help with some certain things? So we are thinking about what is truly going to make us the happiest in our retirement. Is it going to be, living it up every day, going out every day and, being in a community like the Villages, or is it going to be sucking up those harsh winters, and staying close to home, but being next to our loved ones, and getting to spend time with them. So that is a giant thing to consider. And those thoughts kind of put us in the middle as far as maybe looking into like a snowbird retirement, where we can spend the winters down in Florida in the warmth, and then spend the summers up here with our family. So at least we would only be away from our family and friends, half of the year. But the other major fact to consider staying in Massachusetts is in my top 5 reasons to live in Massachusetts video. It actually ranked number 2, and that's the healthcare. And I dive a lot more into detail in that video, but Massachusetts has some of the best hospitals and best medical care in the entire nation. So like I said, we're not getting any younger, and yeah, it sounds great to be living it up in Florida every day, but what if, God forbid, something happens bad health-wise? Not to live your whole life with that thought, but, the older you get, the odds are that something could happen. And, it would be nice knowing, in Massachusetts that some of the top healthcare in the nation, is right there. Plus, if your family and friends are still here, you're going to have people around you to support you, through some of those hard times, if God forbid something like that were to happen. Those two factors are huge, and they can outweigh all the positives, that the Sunshine State has to offer. Some other things to consider with staying in Massachusetts, is also something that I mentioned in my top 5 reasons to live in Massachusetts video, and that is the concept that, with Massachusetts comes New England. And like I said with Florida, just because you're retired doesn't mean you're not going to drive around and travel. So, you can reasonably drive to places in New England and right in Massachusetts, and just see some epic views of fall foliage, mountain views, things like that. And, that's one critique on Florida, is that Florida is pretty flat. You're not going to be seeing a lot of mountain views down in Florida. Of course, you'll be trading those views for, some epic beach views in warm weather. So, it's a give and take kind of thing. Overall, there are a lot of things to consider with retirement. What your plan is, where you want to live. And everyone's in a different stage in their life. Everyone has different things going on. So it really is a personal preference. And the great thing about it is nothing set in stone. You can move to Florida and then decide, you want to move back home, and that's okay. A lot of people do that, or you could decide, maybe both. I don't know. Maybe you want to do the snowbird thing. Maybe you want to live half the year in Florida, half the year up here. And you kind of get the best of both worlds. So there's so many different options, maybe also you move to Florida and you just, you never look back. You just love it. You stay down there and that's it. So, I've met people that have done all of those different options. Retirement is always a great thing to keep on your radar of thoughts. It's never too early to start planning. Heck, I was 35 and I was already starting to think about where I wanted to live when I was 55. So start planning now. So always feel free to reach out to me if you want. I'd be more than happy to discuss different retirement options in Florida versus Massachusetts. I can even set you up with, emails directly from the MLS of properties in Florida. And you can have this going on for years. And then just so, like, whenever you feel like it, you want to look at different properties in Florida, it's there. And you just check the email. So, that's actually one of the reasons that I got my real estate license in Florida, is because I wanted direct access to the MLS in Florida so I can research these properties, because they have these companies, Zillow, Realty.com, different things like that, those are great, but those aren't direct from the MLS. I mean, they do get some of their information from the MLS, but it's not the MLS, it's different. So the MLS, that's the most up to date, that's direct access. That the minute an agent enters property, it's on there. So, that's what you want. That's a big reason why I got my license. Or there are some great 55 plus active adult communities in Massachusetts. There's a lot of brand new developments that I've been to, and they're really nice. And maybe, you want to stay in Massachusetts for totally different reasons than what I'm thinking about staying in Massachusetts, So Massachusetts has a lot of great qualities to it. So just think about everything. Again, I'm here as a resource. If you want to talk anything about real estate or anything about Florida, I love talking about those two things. Talk to your friends. Talk to your family. Get some input from them. If you go to Florida, talk to the residents down there. Ask them what they think. Just talk to whoever you can talk to. All right, good luck on your journey. And if you're close to retiring, then congratulations, because, that's awesome because, I still have quite a few years left, but I get excited thinking about the future. I can just imagine, when I get to that age and all these things I've been looking at and researching for all these years, are just starting to come to reality. So, if that's you and you're close, what a feeling. Congratulations. I'm so happy. I'm so excited for you. And if you still got some time like me, it's never too early to start planning, start dreaming, start getting your mind going. But anyway, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. I know all these educational videos are very long, so if you take the time and you watch the whole thing, I very, very much appreciate it. So anyway, if you need anything, like always, I'm here. Reach out, call me, text me, whatever works for you. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. and take care.